because in some ways it's masked, I guess my question would be, what do we do with kind of opening up the door of denial, opening up the door of the places where the lines have been hazed, but they're not gone.
Right.
What my generation faces is that there's a lot more subtlety to the way that we experience race and subtlety to the way that it exists in our universe. So our problem and our challenge is going to be then, how do we identify these interesting power dynamics, economic dynamics, historical dynamics that can then help us, not just as Black kids, but people of color and even like people of different descent, that can actually come to and bring value to a situation that is right now very much the normal is considered to be, much more European American.
Right. Well, if the problem isn't perceived as being that great, then the desire to have conversation about what the norm is can't be that great. Because generally speaking, people think everything's pretty much okay. I mean, we still have our problems, quote unquote, but really people get along pretty well. And, we all interact with each other. There's more interracial gatherings. There's more interracial dating. People have different jobs than they used to have. So what's the problem? I mean, and I think when you say the intensity issue, I mean, that hits a chord with me because then where's the drive to really have to address this? Whereas we had a drive. We knew that things were wrong and they were blatant enough where we could say, okay, here's some concrete things we're working for. And, people weren't getting lynched, but, people were getting arrested, people were getting beat up. All those things were still happening when I was growing up. But the thing what you said that struck me, or one of the things that struck me was if in fact there's not this intensity or this feeling, this urgency, if you will, does that mean that, and I know you're not speaking for your whole generation, okay, I got that, or your whole race or any of it, right?
Right.
But one of the things that strikes me is when I look at the institutional patterns of racism from when I was younger, and I worked on this issue in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I remember the institutional patterns of incarceration and dropout rates and income disparity and all those kinds of things. And they're not all that different. And so in my mind, as I read those statistics and see those statistics, the intensity is still there. So even if I'm getting along with folk out there better, which I feel like relationships, one-on-one relationships are better, but because the institutional patterns are so profound, that intensity hasn't left me, and I see it more. And so what I find sometimes is when I do bring it up, and again, this isn't to be disparaging, I'm not sure if the folks I'm talking to are talking about the institutional piece, or just talking about, well, we get along better individually across race and culture. I mean, I don't know if that resonates at all, but it really does.